Welcome to the first edition of Research Fantasy presents our NFL DFS quarterback picks, which will be dropped every Tuesday, the regular season and the playoffs. So I'm really excited about it. We went back and forth between, do we want to do a picks video or do we want to do more of a general discussion looking at the quarterback situations, try to maybe identify some guys who are going to be high or low owned, throw out some stats, really take a look at how we could build our lineups. So what this video will likely not be is it's not going to be spoon-fed information like a lot of the other videos we've done. Take our NASCAR video, for example, where we do identify 4 drivers that are worth looking at. This video might be looking at 30 quarterbacks and just kind of going through one by one, not necessarily saying, oh, this guy's the guy you want to go after, but just citing some information that could be valuable this weekend. We will be offering a premium package. It'll be free week 1. You will be required to create an account at researchfantasy.com. We do not ask for any payment information at the time of sign up, so you get it for free. If you like it, it'll be $5 a week, $15 a month. There's helpful information. We go as far as we possibly can to collect information that is valuable in making your fantasy decisions. It will be definitely far more led like the NASCAR videos, where we will be doing more of a pick format. We have a lot of things we're going to include in there, including game-by-game breakdowns, some value stuff, injury, and there's going to be some stuff for season-long players in there as well. We've wanted to make our site all along a one-stop shop for fantasy, being that it's basically been me the entire time. It hasn't been possible, but as we're starting to expand and add on new people, we're going to really put much more of an emphasis on doing that. I'm using DraftKings as I go down the price list and all that to start off. This week we've got, as the highest priced option, which you probably won't see too often. And let's kind of pause real quick and just say, with all due respect to people who play on FanDuel, DraftKings is definitely the far more competitive format than FanDuel. If you want kind of like a lackadaisical experience on a site that really isn't going to be too reactive to things and, you get what you get, it's going to be FanDuel. You're not going to see the reaction like you see on DraftKings where Ben's the highest priced quarterback because he's playing against Cleveland. You're just going to see name value for the first several weeks priced up, and it'll take a while on FanDuel for price corrections to take effect. That's not a slight against FanDuel, to each their own. I'm just saying you will see far more of a competitive nature. Plus, FanDuel still in 2017 has a ridiculous kicker position in there. I don't understand. Their players like it. I can't believe that. I know for a fact I've never talked to anybody who likes a kicker position on FanDuel. Nonetheless, let's start things off. Big Ben playing at Cleveland. One thing of note here, Ben has been atrocious on the road. His home road splits are going to be are pretty dramatic. He scores 11 more fantasy points at home than he does on the road. I expect his ownership to be question mark because it's really tough to know what to expect week 1 of the NFL season. You're going to have a ton of new players coming in. I do think a lot of them will look at the matchup, will not look at things like home road splits and say, got to play Ben against Cleveland. And I think he's going to be, he would have been a great tournament option aside from the fact that he's not going to be a solid tournament option because his ownership will be normal with new players coming in. And maybe he wasn't even a great tournament play. I just mean that his low ownership that would have occurred by week 10 when players had really figured out how to do this is not going to be the same as it is in week 1. Cam Newton on the road against San Francisco. Newton's biggest game last year was against San Francisco. Unfortunately, he's thrown 2 passes in the preseason, coming off of surgery, playing for a team that's upgraded its offensive weapons, included in the backfield, and he's not supposed to run as much. That remains to be seen, but those are some negative things aside from the improved receiving core that he'll be working with. Aaron Rodgers, much better at home than on the road against Seattle. Still nothing really to write home about. Rodgers is likely to have a game that is good but not great, and you really need him to have a game that's great. Matt Ryan on the road at Chicago. This is an interesting position. I believe Ryan may be the highest priced quarterback on this Sunday slate on FanDuel. He's 4th on DraftKings. Chicago really doesn't have a hope and a prayer to stop them. This should be the highest scoring team. I'm not sure on a season-long basis how things end up looking for the Falcons without Kyle Shanahan, but to start things off, I think this is a favorable position. Speaking of favorable positions, we've got Russell Wilson, who should be better this year, should have these injuries behind him, should have a 1 year healthier Jimmy Graham. Backfield is still a little bit of a mess, but you got to feel like it's even slightly better than it was last year with the addition of Eddie Lacy and the development of Thomas Rawls and CJ Prosise. I think the offensive line has improved slightly. All of those things and the fact that he's going against a Green Bay defense that really is not that good make him an intriguing play in Week 1. Marcus Mariota and Derek Carr, we can 1-2 them. They're in the highest total game this week, I believe. And ironically, Oakland was in 2016 as well against the New Orleans Saints. Mariota has new weapons. I don't think the mentality of this team so much is to throw the ball. I don't think the trajectory of Mariota is to run the ball. So I think you are dealing with a better perceived opportunity than the results will dictate. Derek Carr, on the other hand, has a great offensive line, has a strong duo of receivers in Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree. The Tennessee Titans' defensive backfield is not very good. I don't know even how much it's really going to be improving, especially in Week 1. The running game here is questionable with Marshawn Lynch. When we last saw him, he was averaging 3.1 yards behind an awful offensive line, and then he didn't even play in 2016. So there's a lot of question marks there. Jameis Winston is not really being discussed too much, and I do think that he is going to regress a bit. Dirk Cutter wants to run the ball. That's the weakness of this Dolphins team. I fully expect more of a running game here. Kirk Cousins had an awful preseason. I think that fact alone makes it intriguing to drop him in here. Philadelphia, the defensive backs, I got a little bit of an improvement with the trade in Buffalo. I don't love the matchup, but I do not think the running game is functional for Washington. Dak Prescott, this is a spot where I really like the long-term 2017 outlook for Dak Prescott. The 2016, or the Week 1 version is not great. This is a tough matchup for him, likely to be without Ezekiel Elliott, behind an offensive line where I don't care how you want to paint it, is not good, not as good as 2016. You lost two key components, and offensive lines don't just miraculously have the same type of rapport with one another when pieces get moved around. So on paper, this is a worse offensive line. There's no way it's going to be as good as it was last year. With Dez being locked down, I just think that this team is going to struggle to move the ball. Tyrod Taylor is a question mark. If he plays, I do not hate the matchup for him. I think a lot of people are going to be off of him because Sammy Watkins isn't there, but he still gives you the rushing upside. He's going to look at Charles Clay. He's going to look at LaShawn McCoy. To be completely honest with you, Buffalo's like the perfect team to target in Week 1 because you really can see a clear path to how things should break down. So I don't hate Tyrod Taylor at all. Matt Stafford, tough matchup here against the Arizona Cardinals. This is at home. You know, Stafford is a surgeon. He's a very good quarterback, now the highest paid quarterback. But this just is not the matchup for him. This is not a good situation. Flip side of that, Carson Palmer does get a good matchup. The Detroit Lions are absolutely horrible with the defensive backfield. There are some questions with his weapons in 2017, what direction they're going to be able to go. but I do think they'll have more success passing than running, even with David Johnson. But don't mistake what I said as saying that David Johnson isn't a good play. He adapts and he survives, and he's going to be a very critical part of the passing game. Andy Dalton is a cutesy favorite of a lot of these season-long drafters, but week to week, this is not a spot for him. Both of these defenses are pretty good. This game, to me, is just stay away from it all over it. I do not like how this plays out. I think this is going to be a gritty, tough game that doesn't yield positive fantasy results. Eli Manning playing against a defensive backfield that's pretty awful, but not as bad as his offensive line. And that's the concern here with Eli Manning is, will he be able to stand up long enough to deal with the getting the passing game going? I don't like Odell Beckham that much. I don't like Brandon Marshall that much. Where I'm really looking this week is for Eli to target the middle of the field. Well, that safety help breaks up the field to go after both Marshall and Beckham. I expect guys like Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram to eat a lot this week. Joe Flacco, questionable but should play. Again, this is not the spot that I want to run him out with. Again, this just seems to me to be one of those divisional and gritty defensive matchups we could just stay away from. Smoking Jay Cutty going up against Tampa Bay. One thing you can definitely guarantee is that he's going to press the ball downfield, and that's the thing with Jay Cutler is the way this Dolphins team could work in week 1 is likely to be one of two ways, and it's going to come down not to Cutler so much, but it will come down to Cutler, but it's going to affect Jay Ajayi. Here's what you're going to see out of Jay Ajayi. It's either going to be 24 carries for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns, or it's going to be 24 carries for 79 yards and a score if you're lucky. And the reason I say that is because Cutler's going to push the ball downfield, and if he's able to hit Parker and Stills and they're able to get into the end zone, there's no work for Ajayi. And we'll talk about that more on tomorrow's video. But what does that mean for Jay Cutler? This is a quarterback that is at least decent. This guy is not the worst quarterback in the NFL. I could name several quarterbacks worse than him. He's going to go dramatically overlooked. He could be sneaky. I mean, he's going to have a few games this year as long as the Dolphins' offensive line stays upright, where he's going to be a QB1, and it could be as soon as week 1. Carson Wentz, I do expect them to push the football around. Again, interestingly enough, I do think it's going to be through the middle of the field. I'm going Zach Ertz over Nelson Aguilar, even though Aguilar has a superior matchup. I think Ertz will kind of be used more in the middle of the field, but Wentz does have the upside. I'm taking a wait-and-see approach on him to see how his development works out. One guy I'm very interested in this week, and actually we'll just kind of cut out after this, because a lot of these other guys, let's just, looking through the list, guys like Scott Tolzien, Jared Goff, Blake Bortles, Tom Savage, those guys are all in positions where they're just not good matchups. I don't think it makes sense to try to force the issue with them. You're better off to just kind of let things settle as they are. If you miss out on one of them this week, you miss out on one of them. I don't see it happening. 2 guys in the value range that I do really like. Number 1, Brian Hoyer, going to be playing with Kyle Shanahan. I don't think this San Francisco team is going to come out and play dead. You're getting them basically all at bargain bin prices. Hoyer was the best quarterback in the NFL in a 3-week span last year. 3 straight games over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns a game, no interceptions. Looked like a monster out there. Now, I'm not saying that that's what he's going to do. I'm not saying that if you extrapolate it out to 16 games that this is a 5,000-yard passer that's going to throw for 35 touchdowns and no interceptions. But what I am saying is, and he's in the right system with a guy who's going to know how to utilize his strengths, has a great possession receiver in Pierre Garçon, has a couple of underrated talents that could get down the field and get the plays done, and has one of the best running backs in terms of their actual running ability in Carlos Hyde, who's also dirt cheap. Finally, it's Deshaun Kaiser. To me, this Pittsburgh defense obviously got weaker by adding Joe Hayden. Like, you can cut it however you want it. They think they see potential in him. How a change to Pittsburgh is going to help him out, I have no idea whatsoever, but he is amongst the worst cornerbacks in all of the NFL. Did a lot for the city of Cleveland, really tried to do his best there, but he looks like he's 40 years old. He was beaten at every step by Odell Beckham, which you expect, and then by Chris Godwin the following week. There's no way this guy is going to be able to stand up with Corey Coleman, who completely, honestly, could be a guy we're talking about as a top 20 receiver coming into 2018 NFL fantasy drafts. And Kaiser has that connection with Coleman. Yes, they want to run the ball, but Kaiser's got that sneaky college football mentality still, where I do think he's going to try to run the ball a little bit. Those types of quarterbacks always tend to work out well for fantasy reasons. Game flow dictates that they should be playing from behind. The ball should be going through the air. At $4,800 on DraftKings, you could pair him and Coleman for under $10K and then pretty much do whatever else you want to do in your lineup. That'll wrap it up. This kind of gives you an idea of what we're going to do and where we're going to be going with the running back, wide receiver, tight end videos. I'm going to try to tighten it up to about 10 minutes. I might leave some people out next time that just really don't have appeal to me. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Check us out at researchfantasy.com. Follow us on Twitter at researchandwin, and join us again tomorrow.